what you believe at one time was true for that period of time, and you're entitled to change that also. And if that's the only truth that you know, it's not wrong.
Today's an unusual interview because I am in Ubud, Bali, and this is one of the first times I have done an interview like this, and I have a very special person I'm so excited to talk with today. We're talking to, and you're going to have to help me because I could say your name wrong. I think of it as GuruMaa Sevitra Devi? Savitri Devi.
Yeah.
GuruMaa Savitri Devi. Probably saying it not very correctly, but I'm so happy to get a chance to talk with you for
Likewise.
my podcast.
Yeah.
So I feel so fortunate that we met the very first day I was in Bali. And what a gift, because besides the many things that make you special, I already know from spending just a couple days with you, there are many, many things, but it's a personal curiosity that you were born and raised in Bali,
Yes.
but you also lived in Toronto, my hometown, for 25 years.
Yes.
And so as I've said to you a couple of times already in our conversations, I feel you have, besides your spiritual journey that is extensive and rich and lots to share around it, you have some deep cultural awareness from multiple perspectives that not so many people have.
I was fortunate that way, yes.
Yeah. Most of the time, I like to start my conversations with people asking if there's something from their childhood, something from their family of origin, that they think informs who they are and where they've come and where they're at in their lifetime now. So maybe you have something like that.
Sure. My father was from the eastern islands of Indonesia, and his mother is half Dutch. And then my mother also have mixed blood of Malay, Chinese, and also Cham. And as you watched last night in that little documentary, Cham was a kingdom in the Mekong Delta, and it disappeared about 500 years ago. And one of my aunts is a history professor, and she did our family tree, and I think I was like 11th generation from there. You know, they count, I don't know how they counted. I think they calculate the lifespan about 55, 60 years or something like that. So dad was Protestant, mom was Muslim, and to these days in Indonesia, you cannot get into a civil matrimony, and one of them have to change their religion, convert. And that's not happened with my parents. And they were young at the time, 20-something, and they just eloped. So
that was probably not that unusual at that time, is that right?
No, it's
not so common.
Yeah. So, and then they had all four of us here, all of us were born and raised here, because when I was young, I was being the first. My parents were not very religious. They're not practicing anything. So I was free to explore. So I had a little bit influence of Protestant, you know, having a grandmother at home. She had her Bible study. So I learned to sing the hymns and went to the church with her. And then my mom's side of the family is a Muslim one, and they want me to read the Al-Quran. And I read it, not understanding the meaning, but I could read it properly at that time, not understanding the meaning at all, like I said. And then I went to school in Bali, and of course, my first introduction to spirituality, religion is Hinduism.
We were talking yesterday about the different ways of seeing people's perspective. Mm-hmm. And at one point in our conversation, you said something that I thought was really beautiful, which is that just because someone else, and I think you were talking about someone maybe who was raised in a Jewish tradition or like in a Zionistic tradition, sees something, sees an experience, sees a political situation differently than the way you or I might see it, that you are still able to see it as right or correct based on their experience. And I want you to talk a little bit more about that as a general rule. But the thing that strikes me about that is I think it's a rare person, and maybe it comes from this experience of openness as the base, but it's rare for us human beings to be able to see outside of our subjective beliefs as being the objective truth.
Yeah.
I think it's very rare to have a perspective that has as little dogma
Yeah.
to yours
Yeah.
as yours does.
Yeah. And I think that that's true, but also I don't know how much of it is I inherited, through the genetic, and I also don't know if that comes from discipline, practice also, maybe a combination of both. But I truly, truly believe what you believe at one time was true for that period of time, and you're entitled to change that also. And if that's the only truth that you know, it's not wrong.
Yeah.
Like, how could it be wrong? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then when you go to life, we're introduced to different perspective, different experience, then you change. And then when you change, it's a significant change, and not because it was influenced by something, and it's not because of loyalty to your tribe or anything like that, but it comes from this true awakening within yourself. Like, like sometimes people just say that if you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all. What does it mean?
That's what?
What does it mean? If you can see God in all, then you can't see God at all. Like, what does it mean really? So if we want to adopt 100% responsibility of that, then we have to believe with every ounce of your existence that we were all born pure. Like Jiddu Krishnamurti talk about the theory of tabula rasa. We're all a white sheets. And then our early upbringing creates something. And then when we leave home, we were exposed to the world. Then we were exposed to something else. And that could change your foundation or could add to that. And whatever it is, it's true for that time. And we are capable of change. So I think that, and by the way, I'm going to jump right now on topic into relationship also. I was married twice. And both times I left the relationship because I have arrived at a point where I couldn't see my partner as innocent and worthy of to be loved fully, regardless of what he did or didn't do. You know what I mean? And that time when I said, I owe it to him to experience love that is pure. And since I'm not able to give that to him at that moment, I need to heal myself. Because obviously there is something within me that still needs healing, that cannot accept him fully. So I let him go.
Beautiful.
And then I let the second one go. And both relationship is about 10 years.
Even at the time, did you recognize it as being the lack of capacity for you to see them as pure, innocent love?
Yes. And also on top of that, I also realized or recognized my inability. I know what they need. I couldn't give it to them.
Right.
So I decided to let them go because they deserve to be loved the way anybody deserves to be loved.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to heal myself. Like this, there is something here in the way I'm thinking. Like it's all right to make him hurt or suffer. It's not. So let him go. And then in the process, I love myself fully. And I think that once I'm in this place, then if I am to be in a relationship, I could love someone fully.
Yes.
Like with their strength and weaknesses and everything, because I have embraced my own strength and weaknesses.
Totally. I totally relate to that. That makes so much sense. Yeah. My own journey, I think, has led me to believe that we cannot love unless we are coming from a place of sovereignty. And
Definitely.
it's just not possible, because it's always based on some need. Not that interconnectedness isn't an appropriate aspect of relationship,
Yes.
but need for someone to feel something else.
Yeah, because it's heavy, because you're leaning on somebody else. It's not their job. It's not their responsibility to make us happy. We need to be happy. And then two people who are happy try to get together, and then we can get thrown by, the waves of life, and then we try to figure it out together.
So what was your process for healing that in yourself then, if you recognize that to be true both times?
Lots of meditation. Meditation, not asking for anything, and not a certain kind of tradition or anything like that, but getting into the truth for me. And that truth keep on shapes all the time. And I don't think I'm done yet, because maybe by the time I'm done, I die or something. but so from time to time, I have a big aha moments where I have a big catch, like I said, oh. But up to that now, because I have chosen to be celibate for 16 years right now, it's more concepts. I don't have the lived experience yet.
The lived experience of being
the
loved,
new understanding.
New understanding, I see. Like actually practicing it, having it in practice.
Yeah.
How does it feel, or what's the experience of being love in relationship, in
and
practice?
Being able to accept people wholly. Yeah. And no expectation, because I saw lots of young women coming into a relationship with lots stacked of expectation.
Yes.
Which to me, that's a source of disappointment.
Yeah.
But, in hindsight, they say.
Yes. Well, that goes back to what you were saying earlier, is that how much of the experience of thinking without dogma comes from your childhood, your source religion, how much of it comes from experience. And there's something about living years, living experience, living life, having relationships over time. You can't replace it, no matter how wise you are or how much work you do. You can't shortcut the way to actual
it doesn't happen in vacuum.
Yeah. Going to this piece about seeing the world in a generous way, I'd say, seeing people's perspectives in a generous way. I've noticed already that part of your practice, I don't know if it's your personality or your practice or your experience in life, you have a lot of humility. You carry yourself with a lot of humility. And I don't know if that comes from your practice, your religion, whatever, or again, like you say, just the years passing and seeing what works and what doesn't. And I noticed it many times, but I loved when you were explaining in the Kundalini class about the title of GuruMaa. And I think it was so interesting to me, because I think there's something so important to respect and recognition of title, experience, who a person is, but also the way you said, maybe can you just talk a little bit about that as something that describes.
Yeah, specifically if we want to talk about the GuruMaa part, because I've been asked about that, because the word guru have had a very interesting spin, especially in the West, because a lot of people who self-acclaim guru, and if we are referring to the origin of the word guru in Sanskrit, Hindi, which is that which bring us to the light from the darkness, then we become the big guru, those big guru who have done all kind of not very responsible things. But I'm Indonesian, born and raised in Indonesia, and the word guru in Indonesia simply means teacher. And I'm a teacher by profession. I mean, I went to teacher's college before I became a teacher of Reiki or yoga or anything else. So it doesn't have that heavy laden meaning that is hidden, And then Ma is in Bahasa Indonesia, Ibu, which means mother. And I think that I'm old enough to be regarded as Ibu Guru or GuruMaa. But this, not a title, this calling, I guess, is initiated by a friend who is a high priest. And I mentioned this to you, you heard it, several versions of it several times. One day, he heard young people, Indonesian, calling me my name. And then when they were told off by him and they said, oh, all of my Western friends call her that and she's okay with that. And then at that time he looked at me and he says, is that true? Did you let people call you your name? And I said, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, before I moved to Canada, I worked with an American organization, right? The U.S. Save the Children Federation with the, I'm trying to think if it's really federation, Save the Children
Save the Children Foundation?
Foundation.
Yes.
It's not federation. With the international in, the experiment in international living, Vermont-based. So I learned to hear my name being said, being called by my students, by my peer, and it feels respectful enough for me. Like I don't really need any suffix, prefix, or anything to express the respects. But it's very interesting because once he said that and then enforced it, and because he is spiritual head of an ashram, there were lots of ashram residents who immediately pick up and call me that, right? And then it just spread away. And I'm beginning now to accept that. So much so that a few years ago when I was the opening speaker for the Women's Economic Forum, they gave me a plaque that says GuruMaa Savitri Devi, and I said, okay, then I guess I am GuruMaa. I mean, that is...
You're living into it.
Yeah. You know?
Yes.
Yeah. Hopefully I can live up to that. I mean, right now it's very interesting not to accept that because I'm going to be 65. And if I don't accept being a teacher, being a mother, when am I going to do that?
Right.
And this is the place for humility.
Yes.
Because without humility, it's so easy to have the ego flare up, you know, like the mind and everything else. So with the humility, I'm hoping to stay grounded. So with love and with humility, I'm hoping to still have my feet on the ground and then the upper part of my body can go this way and that way, but still grounded.
But at the same time, it's interesting because sometimes I feel that the flip side of ego, at least this is my experience as I come into my later years, is sometimes the challenge is stepping fully into what you know. And I don't know, maybe because you're more naturally a teacher, because you're second or third generation born teacher in your family, maybe it comes more easily to you. But I know for myself, sometimes it takes reminders from other people or practice or encouragement or I don't even know what else to fully step into what I know. And sometimes I know that I don't do that. And I feel like there's an aspect of ego that is that too. Like someone just a couple days ago said to me, Lisa, when you fully step in and bring what you know and who you are, it makes such a big difference to people. And if you don't, you hold yourself back probably from ego, fear, am I too much, all that stuff that you are doing the disservice of bringing what it is that you have to share.
I totally agree. And I experienced that myself. I remember I have some friends, for example, who saw my potential long before, way before I saw it. And I was wondering, what did she see in me? I mean, like I know her or him, them in their stature, where they are in the field that we travel together, the circle that we travel together. And the realization comes very, very late. I asked myself in the beginning, I said, no, you know, I'm supposed to be with students, it's just a teacher. And then she keeps on inviting me, so I know it's not romantic relationship or anything, like just married. So, but she must see her equal in me to want to have a regular, you know, once a month we will go out and have brunch or something like that. So, and it's not just one person, one after another, until I have to really, really look myself. I think the biggest one was when my Kundalini yoga teacher, who is naturopathic doctor, and I think immediately after I finished teacher training, she asked me for my telephone number, and then she invited me to join her teacher training team. And this is the same with my Reiki master teacher, same thing. After I became an advanced Reiki practitioner, maybe about a few months, she called me and she says, I think you're ready to become a Reiki master. I said, okay. So in that circle, at the time, you don't say, I want to become a Reiki master. Your master say, you're ready. So, and then immediately after I became a master, she asked me to go teach with her. And then from time to time, I ran the class at Seneca College in Toronto. If she has something else, if she has to move house, if she has whatever it is. So it became my show. So at that time, slowly, I'm getting used to seeing myself from the lens of other people.
Yeah.
And that helps.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, sometimes I think we need the reflection to fully be encouraged to step in fully. And I guess why I raise that is I think sometimes humility is so powerful and really important for keeping our feet on the ground. But sometimes the shadow side of it can be withholding ourselves too.
Right.
And I think it's such a dance that we do about how do we show up
So
fully.
true.
You know?
So true.
Yeah. So one of the other things that I've been really thinking about since I met you 3 days ago, is how many cultures you bring to bear. You have your original teacher was from India. You were raised in Bali. You follow, I'm not sure where Reiki comes from, but I think it's different. I mean, you've lived in Toronto. I mean, you have so many different cultures. And I've mentioned, like, anyone who follows me and in my podcast or anything knows that the experience of identity is really big for me.
Yeah.
And for me, it's about being mixed race, but also multicultural. And I think that it creates a situation where you're a part of everything, but always outside in some way too.
Yeah.
But it gives a perspective that I think sometimes can be really broad. And I wonder what your experiences or your thinking is for yourself around all these cultures that you bring and how it impacts you.
I think we touched on that a little bit the other day when we were talking about that. So I had very strong experience of being marginal. And then at the same time, again, this is a feedback from another friend. I hope that you get to meet her at some point. She's also from Toronto. She lives here in Ubud. And so when I moved to Toronto and I started to have monthly potluck, and then so I was involved in many circles. I dance flamenco, and I play music in a gamelan ensemble, and there's a yoga, and then there's a holistic healing.
Oh, and you lived in the ashram.
And then I lived in the ashram. This is before ashram when I was still living with my son. And so this is what she says. You know what, Savitri? I noticed that you brought Bali with you. I said, explain to me what you mean by that. She says, you find no community here, so you create your own community. So that's the observation of people. And I almost maybe naturally doing it, but unconscious, if you know what I mean. So instead of finding myself outside in the periphery, I create an inner circle where I invite people to inside. So then it becomes authentically my experience. And in that, I feel like I satisfy my own needs. Does that make sense?
It does. I do that too. And I wonder if it is part of the experience of being always other or marginalized in some way or not fully a part of, is this deep desire to create community and to bring people together. It's always been
natural.
It's natural. And I think when you have that experience of not being fully a part of one thing, you naturally want to create that, you know, and then you also have a wider view also sometimes.
And the satisfaction that I get when all of these friends from different walk of life and
meet each other.
And then they hit it off, and it's like,
me too.
Oh my God, okay. So
totally
there's
love
no
that.
need to compartmentalize people.
Yes.
Because energy doesn't go by boundary line, right? Stop right here and then go there.
Yeah.
You know, it's just natural, so beautiful to observe.
When I watched the documentary about you, which maybe it'll be live at some point and I'll be able to link to it so people can see the whole picture of all the beautiful imagery that he captured in that movie. We talked about the fact that it captured a part of your life and a part of your spiritual practice and a part of your teaching, but then it missed some of the other ones because obviously he didn't have time to touch on everything. But what are the other parts of your vast experience and teaching and commitments and work that you're doing in the world that maybe we could touch on because it wasn't as much touched on in that documentary.
Yeah. So without labeling, using labels, because my desire is to drop any labels. I'm trained in multi-disciplines of holistic wellness, and I'm also a priestess, and there are responsibility that comes with that. So as a priestess, I also do some spiritual healing, for example. And then if people come with their spiritual items like a mala or like something and want to be blessed, and in Bali we call that process pasupati, and I would do that for them. And if they need to have a water purification ceremony, then I could do that for them. And also, if they want to have a more serious purification using fire. So using water is like you're showering, or you wash your clothes and then it stain again, and you wash again and stain again. Fire has a different way of purifying things. It goes to the root cause of the problems, and we see this with, if there's a fire in a house or something like that, all burned down to the ground, same thing. So the rate with which I do the purification is more water than the fire. And I don't know if that covers it.
Yeah, well, so you're touching on some of the aspects of being a priestess, which I'm sure there's a lot more to say about it. But since you touched on the water and fire ceremony, I've seen the water purification ceremonies advertised and people who do them. I don't really know what the process of it is or what the purpose of it is. Does someone bring a particular thing they're wanting to be freed of or healed from, or is it more general? What can you share about the water purification process? It's Balinese or
Balinese.
Indonesian?
It's Balinese. It's quite common in Bali, and from my observation, sometimes someone doesn't even have to become a priest or priestess to do that. If they know they do it, the process often enough. I've seen some tour guides who took over that purpose, and I don't think that not that first function, and I don't think that's strong also. But yeah, usually people come with the knowledge that they have something that has accumulated and they would like to cleanse themselves. Mm-hmm. So the water itself, there are many kind of waters. You can go to a waterfall and then use that water, running water from the waterfall. You can have water from the waterfall or from Beji, and then you collect that water, and then you put it in your shrine or temple or holy room at home, and then you turn that water into holy water, and then some people use flowers in it, and then they use that to purify people. And you don't have to be in a waterfall, you could be at home. And then we also I have been blessed or authorized to give water purification using coconuts. So in Bali, we call it bungka. So if you look at coconut, and if you recall yesterday when we walk, so there is bungka gading, there is bungka gading,
right, orange
which is
and green.
Yeah, there's yellow, which is moon. They call it bungka bulan. And then there is bungka gading, which is orangey, and it's considered like gold. And then there is bungka udang, something that the flesh inside is pink or reddish or something like that. Every one of those coconut has different function, and for several particular ceremony also. And then as a tantric practitioner, there is another way of water purification. They call it water purification, but then they call it malukat, which is a water purification ceremony. Tantoya, without water. Very interesting. So with mantras, mm-hmm. and then or the practice of Balinese Kundalini yoga, which will how do I say this? The body will excrete, I guess, perspiration or tears and saliva and all of that, especially the tears and the perspiration, which is very different than if you're sweating because of hot weather. So it's considered purification, purifying. So then they call it melukat tantoya. So water purification without water. I know it sounds very contradictory, right?
Yeah. Paradoxical.
Yeah.
Interesting. What would you say is we also talked about how to hold perspectives on the world. And I guess this is a bit of a broader question, but given, one of the reasons I like to interview women, and I don't get to interview too many women who are older than me just because I'm kind of old, so I'm on the older side. So there's, most of the women I interview are in their 30s or 40s or 50s. Yeah, exactly. It is. But what would you say you notice or you would want for the world or for people? Like, what's generalizable from your experience in the world? There was like one thing or a couple of things that you would want your son or your students to know or to think about. What might you share? And it's a pretty big question, but I'm sure something will come to you.
In general, right?
In general, yeah.
Yes. So, as you know, I travel different circles, but particularly in the Kundalini circle, we usually consider ourselves the peaceful warrior. So warrior, first and foremost. So as a warrior, you are defending the truth. And this truth, like we say, Satnam. This truth is not my truth against your truth, because then it will be, like this, in conflict.
Yeah.
But this is the truth, the kind of truth that you can examine from any angles, and it remains the truth. So that kind of truth, absolute truth.
Yeah.
So chanting, reciting the seed mantra again and again, my hope will shift the mindset away from doctrine, from dogma, from, whatever it is that we heard from our parents, from our surroundings, whether it's conscious or not being put in us. We have the responsibility to now look at things as they are, and then develop our own relationship to that truth. And it doesn't mean that as a warrior, then you have to pick up a gun and then go out and start shooting people. That's far from that. It's actually, you can be right here in silence, but promoting peace from inside. Because if there are more of us promoting peace, then it will tip the equation. But this is very different than people who just claim neutrality, because I have learned, I don't know when I learned, I think maybe in the early 2000s, that neutrality actually will benefit perpetrator in any situation, even if it's domestic relationship, domestic violence, whatever it is. So that's not what we want. What we want is being able to see the truth and know what it is, and be the voice for the voiceless if necessary. If it's not necessary, strengthen here or in your own circle, spread that. At least you are known for your stance.
Right.
That's all. I mean, you don't need to preach. You don't need to convince people to do what you do. But this is who you are.
Yeah, you said something like that yesterday, and it was really profound to me, which is that just the believing, just the knowing that you have the stance, just in your own embodiment, knowledge, mind, taking a stand for something has impact.
Yeah.
And I think there's sometimes a projection from outside that says you have to do something with that information.
Yeah. And I don't think that's kind also to expect others to do a certain way. Who said that that's the right way for you?
Yeah.
It's for her. That's probably it.
Yeah.
But not for everyone. But after I said that, I'm also I'm very curious, I'm very conscious that I become curious and suspicious of the people who claim to be neutral, or who keep on saying that silence is gold, because what is going on around you, if the people around you are gossiping, sure, silence is gold. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if there are child laborers around you, for example, very conscious, there's domestic violence around you, silence is complicit. Silence is not good. You know what I mean? So knowing that and become steadfast in that, I think that's enough. And then model the behavior. And those who are attracted to that energy will just find each other. And if not. And I'm so proud, and I mentioned this to you, that I haven't seen my son in 7 years. But then I heard him marching with his family. And I said to myself, wow, I guess when I was marching, when he was small, that get into the consciousness somehow. I don't know, maybe not, but, I can hope.
Yeah, it has an impact. What you do, what you think, it has an impact in many different ways.
Yeah.
I think in that conversation you said something like, you're probably not getting the right words, but it was something along the lines of that you take personal responsibility, or you're very conscientious about what you're very
the moral
conscientious
obligation.
about the moral obligation
To witness.
And then to how you see. I don't know if you said see things or hold things or think things.
Yeah.
But it wasn't what struck me is it wasn't a moral obligation and conscientiousness around fighting things or doing things. It was more like how you be with the truth.
Yes.
Is the way that I took it.
Yeah.
Which really struck me.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, what was
lizard?
that? Frog?
That's house lizard. And this is Balinese superstition.
Okay.
Because we say that house lizard is the representation of Sangyang Aji Saraswati, which is a goddess of knowledge.
Oh.
So, and truth and, fine arts. So when you utter something and you hear that, it's like an affirmation.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful.
I think it's only among the Balinese circle that we say.
Okay, so even if we say that, even if we, what is true, what is not true, right? That reminds me of thinking about being in your Kundalini class and how and I haven't done that much, as I told you, I haven't done that much pure Kundalini yoga, but I loved how there were mantras and seeds that you planted in terms of thinking that were combined with physicalizations. And it felt almost like it was an incantation through embodiment practice of a truth or a perspective.
Yeah.
Like the one that really got me emotionally, because I just felt it was, if I take the things and I let them and I pass them, this one.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, I can really feel how if I hold that, here's a thing that I want to let go of, and I'm going to physicalize the experience, that how can it not
move the energy,
transform my mind or my brain or my energetics around that thing?
Yeah, and then you infuse that with your breath.
Yes.
Powerful. And then the mantra and so many
combination,
things.
the music, the mantra, the physicalization, the breath. Really powerful, really beautiful. We live in a culture that shelves women after a certain age. And you're obviously in communities where you are respected and your wisdom is seen. But there's a part for me that I've always felt is that if we're lucky, when we get to be past 50 or past menopause or whatever, if we're lucky, we're seen as wise. Sometimes I hear that, oh, you're wise. I expect. Yeah. But I feel like that misses so much of the fullness of what we bring as women in the later in the second half of life.
Well, definitely. I remember in Toronto, this is a few days after my mother passed away, I decided to hold a workshop, and I call it Fabulous 50-something.
Nice. Like it.
So, and then my mother passed away, and then a few days after was the date of the workshop. Everybody asked me, are you going to cancel it? Like my friend who acted as my assistant says, are you going to cancel it? I said, you don't know my mother. My mother is a school principal and high school teacher. She would want me to continue with this. So I decorated the room in her favorite color, which is yellow. So lots of yellow tulips, yellow daffodils and all that. And then everybody was conscientious, like doing it. And I look around, they are not just 50-something, but 60-somethings. They're all teachers. They're all kind of teachers. And then I asked them at the end, why this workshop? There are so many other workshops. Why this workshop? And then they say, what you mentioned earlier, they say like we feel like we cease to be meaningful. What we say doesn't really matter anymore. We are put to the side or whatever it is. And then there is a sense of wanting to feel beautiful, useful, and all of that. It saddens me because my mother, until the day she died, was very active, like doing all kind of things. And I see myself probably like her, you know what I mean? I didn't realize it at that time, but I'm very much like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to do that.
Same.
Yes. And sometimes people say, why do you keep on studying? I said, well, teaching is sharing with others, but studying is feeding myself.
Yes.
And I feel it's equally important.
Oh, important.
Right. So what I notice for myself right now, and I don't know if this is the direction of your question, I feel like my days, not necessarily my days are numbered, but at 65.
But they are.
Yes, exactly. At 65, I have seen, the sign that the skin had changing and become less elastic. I mean, thinner hair and everything. So I have a very acute awareness that I'm closer here than there. And so maybe the fall of my life or something like that. And I still have a lot of things I want to learn. So one of my students mentioned to me, I bet that's what brings the light in your eyes. Like you're always excited about something. If you're telling me something, you sound so happy and full of life. And I said, well, yeah, because the more I learn, I really truly feel, the less I know. Like, or there are lots more.
Or bring it on. There's more. There's more. What else can you do?
And a goodie.
Yeah, I'm in like a candy shop.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I have a model I call Artful Aging that has 4 tenets to it. And one of them is reinvention, constantly not getting stuck and ossified, but which is what yoga, a big part of it is keeping the mobility and all that stuff, right? But also in the mind. And one of the aspects of that tenet of Artful Aging that is reinvention is also bidirectional learning, like not just going with this cultural idea that the elderly are the wisdom and we pass it down, but no, how do we learn from young people? What is there to learn from
my
young people?
goodness.
There's so much.
True. So true, so true. I don't know how many times I shock myself from learning from younger people because they haven't been tainted by life experiences. And if I said earlier, we are closer here than there, they're closer here than there. So they remember a lot of things from the place they came from, which I have forgotten.
Yeah.
So learning wisdom coming from such a young person, very fresh.
Yeah.
I find like, oh my God, where did I lose my innocence? Somewhere there, like, I can learn about that. I can learn about that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, such a journey.
Yeah.
So one last thing, what do you miss about Toronto?
The people.
Your friends, you have friends there.
Definitely. Community. I don't miss the cold.
No.
I miss the summer. Summer in Toronto is so much fun. Dancing in the street, lots of music in the street, lots of world music, world food, and
so international, right?
Yeah, and my friends, because although I was born and raised here, I spent the early part of my life here and the later part of my life there. So
like the central part of your adulthood, really, right?
Exactly. So all of my friends there. And that's probably also the reason why the 2 friends that I consider my close friends here in Ubud are both Canadians.
Interesting. Yeah.
And sometimes I get to be invited for Canadian Thanksgiving. Maybe they didn't know that I was not Canadian, or maybe I was considered honorary Canadian. I don't know.
Canadians that don't live in Canada like to do Canadian Thanksgiving. I went to many Canadian Thanksgivings. It's really interesting.
So it's so sweet.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really nice to talk with you in this format. I've had a couple other conversations with you, but thank you for taking the time to talk with me on my podcast.
Thank you. This is I think my very first full-on podcast, and I have a little bit apprehension, and then I said, no, I'm just going to chat with Lisa.
Which you did. Thank you so much for being with me here today. I value your time and your attention so much. I have a favor to ask, and that is if there's anything in today's episode or any other episode you've seen that you found valuable or interesting or important in any way, if you could share it with a friend. And while you're at it, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and even better, also hit the bell, the like, the notification button, so you'll always be notified when I publish new content, and so you can help me to grow the channel. In the meantime, please do check out this video or this playlist where I think you'll find even more interesting information. Thanks again for being here. See you next time.